Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Absolute Game of Nerds with your non-geek, non-nerd hosts, JP and Rohan. And today's show is pretty special because we have a guest that's been a huge part of the collectible industry for a long period of time. And today we have Mr. Steve Borock from Comic Link. Now, Steve's resume, hey Steve, we really appreciate you being here, but I like I said earlier, your resume is quite profound, and I think Rohan can do a much better job of introducing you than that quick one I just gave. So, Rohan, go ahead and give him a proper introduction.
Yeah. Hey guys. So we got again a titan of the industry here with Steve. Steve is one of the founders of CGC. Then he started CBCS, and then I believe My Comic Shop, and then now he's with Comic Link. He's involved in a ton of things. You'll see him at cons all over the country. And again, just another great example of why the comic community is just so welcoming and amazing. I mean, I literally just messaged Steve, and he just immediately was like, "Here's my phone number. Hit me up anytime." And then from there, we're like, well, let's get you on the pod. I messaged him after I saw him on Lawrence from Mighty Comics' podcast. And then Errol's always fun. Yeah, Errol's always raving about Steve. And to kind of close the loop here, when we interviewed Errol, he talked about the owner of Comic Link buying his AF-15, I believe 7.0, which gave him the funds to buy his Superman 1. That man is Steve. Steve is with us now. Oh, nice. It all comes full circle. So, Steve, say hello.
How y'all doing? It's great to be here. I love talking about our hobby. Love talking about comics, comic art, pop culture, movies. So whatever you think that your audience would want to know about, that's what I'll talk about.
Yeah, we want to.
I have no agenda.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. So we always start, Steve, with just kind of like a comic book or comic related origin story. So I imagine maybe this goes all the way back to your childhood. Kind of tell us about how you got into comics and where the love began.
Oh, the love began right away. My father used to commute from New York City to Long Island on the railroad, and he would always he liked comics as a kid, and he wanted me to learn how to read. I was very young, and he would bring home comic books, but he would only bring home DCs or Archies. So I kind of grew up with those until I was about 8, I guess. And then, I found Marvel, which blew my mind. Yeah. It was costing me a fortune. And I was a kid. I didn't have a lot of money. So there was this unbelievable place in Manhattan. You can go back in the day. Started by Phil Suling. It was called the Phil Suling Marketplace. It wasn't even called a convention. And it was in a horrible hotel like the Taft or the Roosevelt, and always in the basement. And you could still smell cigarettes and marijuana there. It was crazy. The 70s were kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
I was only able to afford half a table the first time. I was 12. Ricky Feldman, my schoolmate, he was into DC and I was more into Marvel, so it worked out well.
Split the table.
Yeah.
Steve, do you have what year are we talking about relatively?
Well, if I was 12, that would be 74, 75, right?
Okay, right on.
Yeah, and I was the kid in the room. I got taken advantage of a little bit by some of the smarter people because, I was like looking at a price guide and they're really looking at the marketplace, right? And I didn't buy any original art. I mean, I could have bought Kirby pages for like $10.
Oh.
I just loved the comics so much. Now I collect original art. So then I was trading back and forth with some people, setting up at really small shows, and then took a break. I had a well-spent, misspent youth. I followed the Grateful Dead around the country for a while and stuff, and then got back into comic books, was setting up. Really what I was also doing was taking a lot of newbies under my wing so they wouldn't get ripped off by, J. Maybrook, Greg White, all these guys who were thieves. But it wasn't easy selling comic books, especially in the 90s. We had a bit of a dip, and that's when I got pegged for CGC. They went to the top dealers and top collectors, asked who they trusted and who could grade, who could tell restoration, and they gave me a call, and I was like, man, you can't put comic books in plastic. No way. It's just, it doesn't make sense. But then they showed me how it goes in coins and sports cards and how it protected people on eBay. Because my friends were getting raped on eBay back then. There wasn't much rules in place, if you will. And my friends were getting stuff without a centerfold. The guy wouldn't take it back, or there was restoration. The guy said there wasn't, and all that stuff. So I grabbed Mark Haspel. He was Comics on Parade back in the day. He's young. Was young. We're older now. This, 1999. But he is a genius, and he retains all this incredible information. So I pegged him, and we thought we were just going to make the hobby safe. We were talking about it. Actually, it was funny. Matt Nelson, the president of CGC, Mark, the former president, and me, the former president, all hung out a couple of weeks ago in Miami.
I saw that photo.
Yeah, it was cool, man. It's just we thought we were going to save the hobby, which we actually, CGC actually made a big comeback for the hobby with prices. And then the Greg Manning auction happened. Everything exploded. Then Heritage and Comic Link. First Comic Link, then Heritage. Right. Yeah. And Josh Nathanson was so smart. He saw the writing on the wall for certification, and he was like, I'm in. I'm all in. But it took us a long time to sell it. Some people told me to go away. I don't know if you remember the old CBM, but Comic Book Marketplace, Gary Carter's magazine.
So real quick, Steve, so JP and I both followed as kids in the 90s, and then we had like a 30+ year break, and we just got back in last year. So when you say
that's wild.
Yeah. So we don't have too much, so it's great to hear you talk. But what I wanted to ask, so CGC calls you up. Prior to then, you talked about you were selling at shows. Was that always like your main occupation?
No. I was working in the gold business for a long time.
Okay. And then where did you just learn how to grade just by being around comics and doing that on the side?
Well, no, it's not just that. I mean, what's really important is the friendships you make in the hobby, and you find out which people are honest and knowledgeable, and you stick with them. And I mean, Bob Overstreet taught me ethics and stuff about books and the history. John Snyder, the second, who worked at Diamond Gemstone for Steve Jeppy, and Steve also taught me a lot. Steve and I stayed really good friends, which is cool. We text a lot, but I mean, it was really about the ethics and taking people, under our wing and showing them that, like, look, don't buy from this person anymore. Your books just came back restored, when they didn't know it, and they paid top dollar. Yeah. So it was a wild ride. But when they picked me, I said, I don't know, man, but they said they would make the holder openable, because I said, the holder you're talking about, you can't open. And basically like it is today. But it was supposed to be tamper evident and openable, because I said, look, people are buying this on eBay because they like to read comic books.
Mhm.
it turned into something completely different. You know, you have the 9/8 chasers, which I, I kind of understand. I was, you know, one of the top collectors in the world at one point, for more fun, adventure, timely. Well, timely's, you know, John Verzel had all the church copies, so I couldn't have the greatest ones.
Yeah.
But, you know, I owned most timelies and most Golden Age DCs, Wonder Woman sensations.
Wow.
Yeah, I never had a Detective 27.
Ah.
It was always out of my reach somehow. And you know, I could have bought one for 70,000 back in Sotheby's. And now it's probably worth uh, 2 million today.
Oh, nice.
But you got to look back in kindness. You can't buy
Yeah, totally.
everything, right? And you have to make the right decision. And nobody has a crystal ball, right?
Yeah.
I mean, whoever thought the first Morales would be
Yeah.
worth so much money? And you know, it's
Or the
wild, but that's
Jevic
might be the
variant.
key for that generation, right?
What?
I mean, Hulk 181 was worthless
Yeah.
when it came out.
Well, JP and I talk about it all the time because, you know, Hulk 181's a big book for us. And, you know, we look back when we were kids and like I have a Marvel card that says price for Hulk 181, Cover Street 1990, $75.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was crazy. You know, in the 70s, I think I mean, Wolverine exploded with Giant Size X-Men 1, but really exploded when Byrne took over because he was really into that character. And he wanted to make him better than he was. And he, as you know, Byrne did a fantastic job. And
Yeah.
then, of course, Miller came along later with the amazing 4-issue series.
Yeah. So, of all those gems that you were talking about, what would you say at the time? Because I believe I heard you said once you started CGC, you sold off everything because you didn't want to be biased in any direction. So, but before you did that, what would you
Right.
say was like the top book that you had? Just curious.
Well, I've owned 2 Action Ones.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I owned, co-owned, because it was expensive, with one of my best friends in the hobby, the Flash 1 church copy,
Yeah.
Morphin 52 church copy, the first Spectre, all sorts of great books. I mean, you know, I went through the Silver Age really easily. It was easy to find, so I had everything in high grade.
Wow.
And like I said, I was a high grade collector, so I had a lot of church copies, San Francisco's. I was the first person to see the Nova Scotia collection. I got first dibs. I spent $90,000, a little over, back in the 90s before
Oh, wow.
certification.
Yeah.
I got some great books. I mean, Detective, you know, 28, which, sorry, 30, which is such a hard book. That's the welder, right, on it. It's not a Batman cover.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people didn't save it as much as they did the Batman covers. But yeah, I got that for steal. I mean, James Payette found the collection, said he owed me a favor and told me I can come on up to New Hampshire and I get first dibs, but everything was going to be double guide. And I said, fine, you know. And the only thing he wouldn't sell me was the Superman 1 because he had promised already a great client that if he got one in and it was, you know, not high grade, he would sell it to him. And that was very nice. Jim, you know, is, you know, one of the leaders of the industry. I mean, he's been doing it since what, 71 or 72. Well respected and very honest. But you know, I had an amazing Fantasy 15 and probably like 8.5.
Wow.
Yeah, when I sold it, I thought I got a lot of money, but
Now
once
today.
again, we don't have crystal balls. We, you
Yeah.
know, we don't know what the future is going to hold.
So let me ask you this now. So when you come into CGC, were they like, Steve, you know, you're starting from scratch, figure it out, or was there already a structural place where they're like, okay, we want comic books graded at 0.5, 1.0, 1.5, 1.8, 2.0, all the way up to 9.8. And these are what pedigrees are. And then they wanted you to facilitate it, or did you have to like come up with that whole thing from scratch?
Yeah, Mark Haspel and I spent basically the whole year of 1999 working on the holder, working on standards. What I did was I told CGC it couldn't be Steve Borock grading. I was a tougher grader than most people because I was really picky. I was, young and dumb. But anyway, so what we did was we went out and we got a stack of comic books, a games file copy, EC. We got like a near mint Spidey 120. Then we got like a 0.5 Batman 18. Also, ran all the grades.
Spectrum, yeah.
Right. And so we went to some of the top dealers and some of the top collectors, and we had them grade them, and we averaged it out. I mean, anything that was crazy, we threw out. We didn't want skewing the grading scale. The grading scale came about from meetings with CGC, a lot of Overstreet advisors, Steve Jeppy, Bob Overstreet, John Snyder. There's one gentleman, my brain is fried from the last weekend at WonderCon, but Bruce Hamilton, that's it. He was very instrumental in getting that together. He was a force in this hobby. I was very lucky, to be a young kid and the right people giving me advice.
Yeah.
It really helped. Like I said, it's all about the community. We need to make friends with the right people, stay friends. Don't worry about the money. It's about the comics and the friendships.
So actually, you said something that interesting. So you said in 1999. So then when I think about it, CGC officially came out publicly, I think, was it 2001? So
no, 2000.
2000. Okay. So when you first got that call from CGC, what year was that?
That was either late 98 or early 99. I can't remember.
Okay. So roughly a year and a half, we'll say, that took you guys to kind of get everything going and put together.
Yeah, I would say a year.
Okay.
Definitely. But, we had to figure out at the time, Barracks was the best thing to use. But that's for food and for medical supplies that have shelf lives. Mm-hmm. The Barracks should be changed every 8 to 10 years. It used to say that on the CGC label. I don't know why they took it off. The more information we have, the better off the hobby is. But when I started CBCS, we found PETG, which doesn't have to be changed. And you don't have to put the microchamber in it. And if the microchamber is stored incorrectly for a long period of time without being changed, that too could change the color of the pages that it's against. We never used microchamber at CBCS.
Got it.
Wow. Yeah, that's something I just learned about, was the fact that they have to be changed every 8 years or something. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how. I know some of the books I recently got that are graded that were done in 2020, but I have to go back and check them all to see when they have to be resubmitted, because I have one CBCS book and I was looking at another one recently. I'm glad to know that those ones don't need to be changed. But yeah, it's crazy. I thought they were preserved for life. That's what the reason to get that.
Right. And, I had to manage people's expectations when we were opening.
Yeah, it would be astronomically cost prohibitive to do something like that, right? I mean,
right. And I never lie or break a handshake. So I have to be so honest. When I was selling it, I was saying, look, 10 years from now, you probably have to change it out. Some people didn't like that. But they sure love the prices they're getting for certified books, so it didn't stop them.
Yeah.
And the thing of it, sending the book back in, at least, that's a question I have for CBCS later. But with CGC, when you send them back in, they have all these labels that you can get added on to your book at that time, so it
Yeah.
makes it worth it to do that. That's a question I have is when CBCS might be getting the labels and what the holdup is, and why CGC, going back to them, doesn't have any DC labels. It's all Marvel.
They couldn't get the agreement done with DC. They were able to get it done with Marvel.
Oh,
But,
I was wondering if like part of Marvel's deal was like this is an exclusive thing only with Marvel, and therefore precluded
Not from
them
what I've
from-
heard. I heard they just couldn't get, the deal done.
But in this time frame,
I wasn't party to that.
In this time frame, for DC not to get on the bandwagon, I don't know what they're waiting for. They must, the $5 extra that CGC charges, I guess, wasn't enough for DC, but I think that's a big miss for them. And I don't know if CBCS could get the opportunity to bring in DC, Valiant. I don't know. You name the comic book company, and having custom labels is definitely a draw for some people. I mean,
Oh yeah, I mean, we did a custom label at CBCS to try it out with my good friend and amazing artist Stuart Sager, and it did really well for him. But I had to leave CBCS. They took me off the convention floor. They took me off talking to the big players. They weren't listening to my suggestions. They took me off advertising, all sorts of stuff. And I just
you
said,
like being involved.
well, right. I'm like, well, why did you hire me?
Yeah.
So
Steve, real quick, talk about how long were you at CGC, and then how did like Beckett call you up and be like, hey, we want to start another one? How did that all come about?
I wouldn't have left CGC for another company. I was very loyal to them. I just got burnt out of grading.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot out of you. So that's when I went to Heritage.
Okay.
And, so it was, amicable parting. And then when I started CBCS, it wasn't so amicable. But I don't think that CBCS is going to rival CGC at this point. I think it's a great thing to have competition in the hobby, but I'm not sure they understand that they need the hobby and the hobby doesn't need them. And like I said, they took me off of doing PR, which is what, even though I was bringing in a lot of consignments for Heritage, that's what they wanted me to do too, is a lot of PR. And that's what CGC did. And I brought in a lot of people because even though they didn't trust certification, they trusted me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I just split.
Wow.
Now, when did you leave CBCS? Was that last year, like within the last year?
I'd say it's a year ago.
Okay. So it wasn't the big issue with CGC last year was Acetate Gate. If you remember hearing about that, right?
That was the Invisible Comics.
No, that was the one where they doctored the Ultimate Fallout.
They stapled on an extra cover on top, and so there was
I'm crazy. Same thing with that Invisible comic that they were selling.
Yeah,
I was like, this is not about the hobby. This is not good for the hobby. I'm against all of that.
It was terrible, and it was a good opportunity for CG or CBCF to jump in at that point. Like you said, they were missing the boat, right? That's the time you jump in and maybe take the reins at that point and become the main trusted grader of books.
Exactly. We had a great 3-year run. When we first opened, people were, we graded the Suspense 3 Church copy, the Suspense 3 San Francisco, did the Magic Woo collection with that, it was all high grade, but that Spider-Man 14 was so close to a 9.9, we still gave it the 9.8. It was unbelievable. White pages, the whole bit. Also, I couldn't get CBCS to work with the Hero Initiative, which I'm very involved with and I really believe in. And we could talk about that later. But there was so many things going the way I wouldn't have wanted it to go. And once we sold to Beckett, And when I say sold to Beckett, I didn't get much.
Oh, I didn't realize that Beckett bought it. I thought Beckett was like, we need a comic book wing and started it up. Okay.
No. I started it with my partner at the time, but he told me I had all these investors and all this money. And then like 2.25 years into it, I'd say, he was worried that we weren't making money. And I was like, well, I told you CGC didn't make money for 5 years and we're the underdog. Where's all this investor money? And he's like, well, the investors were just there to put in the initial stuff. And I'm putting in the rest, and I don't want to keep doing this. And I was screwed. I didn't know what to do. So I agreed to move to Dallas and work with CBCS, and the powers that be there didn't want my opinion about the hobby, didn't want my opinion about advertising, didn't listen to me when I said, we have to get these magazine holders out quick. It's been 6 years now, or 7 maybe, that they've been promising magazine holders. They announced that it was coming and did nothing. It was not a good fit for me. I just wanted to be amongst the hobbyists and the fans and my friends, and I want to be back in the hobby, being on the convention floor, helping people make money, helping people avoid traps, things like that.
Nice. So go ahead, JP.
No, go ahead, Rohan.
I was gonna say, so from CBCS.
Too many acronyms. It's like banking here.
The next stop was My Comic Shop then, or was it back?
Yeah, the Saunders family is amazing. We're really good friends. I spend every OFCon with them, which is a really tiny old school show in Oklahoma, but I get to be a fanboy. It's fantastic. But I really wanted to come back to Florida. I was tired of living in small apartments where I have a big house here in Florida that I bought when I was with CGC. And my grandkids are now 4 and 6, and we have one on the way. And I didn't want to miss them growing up. So I spoke to my comic shop, and at first they were really cool. But then they decided that they wanted somebody in the house to help look at the books and things like that, even though I worked remote for, Heritage and made the millions, I brought in the Todd McFarlane stuff. I brought in the Miracle Man stuff. I brought in the Maggie Thompson collection. I even convinced Doug Schmell of Pedigree Comics to auction his stuff through us instead of his own auction house. I don't know how I did that, but
wow. Nice.
Quite a salesman.
Yes.
Well, I don't know about being just a salesman. I'm just really honest with people on what they can do and what they can make or what they can't make. I have to sometimes really talk to people about their expectations. Especially because somebody will come to me and say, oh, this just sold for, $80,000. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it in, but I don't know if you're going to get 80. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, the guy who wanted it most spent 80. We don't know if it was 2 guys battling it out from 65 to 80.
Yeah.
So, you can't go by things like GPA.
Yeah.
Right. Which GPA is no longer what it was because so many people don't resubmit their books with the label.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. It was, I think it was an FF2. A really big player had a 9.2. And he kept resubmitting it.
Hoping to get a higher grade?
To get a higher grade. I didn't know this. I mean, there's no tag with it. It's just a comic book. And it was 6 months later after I graded the last one. Well, there was 5 FF2s in 9.2 on GPA and on the census. No, sorry, not GPA, but the census. And so the census was skewed. And so when somebody would buy something, they wouldn't know it was only 2 copies out there, not, you know, 6 or whatever it was.
So I think now don't you don't have to, I guess, probably, but doesn't CGC ask if you are resubmitting something that you send in the label with it, that way they can pull it off the census?
Right, they do. And it just took people time to learn to do that. Some people are too lazy, some people are too scared, and a lot of major players send in tags when they've accumulated 25 or 30. Meanwhile, they're still on the census.
Yep.
Right. And that skews things.
So so I actually have a ton of questions about the whole auction site. So why don't let's talk. So you're at Comic Link now.
Yeah.
How did that come about? You were at my comic shop, and then they didn't want you to work remote, and so you said, okay, I need to look for something that works here in Florida, and then Comic Link, I assume.
Well, yeah, I mean, Josh Nathanson and I, like I said, have been great friends, basically since he started. He's actually been kind enough to call me his mentor at times, which is really flattering because he's a genius and he's really smart at what he does. But when I said I was leaving my comic shop, Josh reached out to me. We've been talking about working together for many years. The stars never aligned, and now they have. So I've done a few conventions with them, getting great feedback. People are really happy I'm at Comic Link. Look, there's the only, it's the only place where it's like, here's 10%. We're not negotiating, right? At Heritage, I had to negotiate a lot. You could get anywhere from giving away 40% to 11, right? But somebody pays for those catalogs, right? And it's not them.
Yeah.
It's the sellers and the buyers, right?
Yep.
And because they have such a high buyer's premium, 20%, if I'm going to bid on something for $10,000, I'm only going to bid $8,200. That's a huge swing. With Comic Link, it's 10%. You want for $100,000, bid 90. And that's it. There's no games.
Yeah.
So it's 10% for the seller and the buyer. Is that correct?
No. 10% for the seller.
Just the seller. There's no buyer's premium.
If you use a credit card, we allow credit cards to be used under $10,000. Then there's a 3% charge because we work on 10%.
Yeah.
And we can't eat that. This is 10%'s low. You talk to the dealers and they're working on anywhere from 40% to 70% margins.
Okay, so then my question would be, so if you sell a book for $10,000, Comic Link takes $1,000, and then the seller, the person who owned the book, takes the $9,000?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then is there like a sliding scale at all? Like if you're selling $1 million book, is it still just 10%, or is it
just 10%? I mean, we get crazy prices, so we don't worry about having to give somebody 9%.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess if I'd have to speak to Josh. I'm talking out of school, but I'm wondering if a $10 million collection came in, if we would do something a little different. But it hasn't hurt us at all.
Yeah.
It's actually helped us quite a bit.
How do you guys acquire, what's the process of acquiring a collection or, an Action One that is Comic Link now big enough where people just are reaching out to you guys? Hey, I got this to sell, I got this to sell, or do you have to go out there and be actively, talking to people, finding out what's going on, who's selling what, or how does that game work?
Well, that's the game, actually. You kind of described it. We go to conventions, we talk to people, we get collections. But yes, I mean, I don't know, a stupid amount of people that bid with us and can sign with us. I mean, we're talking about, I think a few 100,000.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And we deal with people all over the world, which is wonderful. But also, I have a lot of connections. Josh has a lot of connections. Douglas Gillock, our vice president, who's fantastic, really smart too, has made a lot of connections. He was the first hire that Josh ever did, and he's exploded the place with Josh. So I'm on the phone, I'm on emails, I get messages through Instagram and Facebook, and people reach out to me, or I'm on a chat board and somebody sends me something like, I got something to sell.
Yeah.
So is Comic Link and Heritage the two auction sites? I know there's more than that, but Heritage is the one I heard about the most for when I first got back into it, and since that time, Comic Link has been a name that's come up numerous times. So,
oh yeah, I mean, we're the top two auction houses.
and is there a chance you guys could be top dog, given the fact that you're charging less? There's no buyer's premium, and if you're working the room, getting those top collections, I mean, that's probably going to be the reason, right? I mean,
well, I'd love to see it, but Heritage, like I said, they can work on a 40% margin sometimes. So they put out catalogs, which of course you pay for, but and they negotiate down at times depending on what you have. It's a great place. Don't get me wrong. I think Heritage is, I'm very good friends with Jim Halpern and his son Mikey, and Ed Jaster, the senior vice president there. He and I kind of grew up on the convention floor in our late 20s and 30s. We were running around just trying to buy, all these church copies and San Francisco's and Larson's, and we were having a blast. Back then, too, I know the word flipper is pretty bad these days, but the only way you could keep getting money for your collection is if you found a great book that you didn't want, but the price was fantastic, and you could sell it to somebody to pay for the more fun comic I wanted, or I could trade it for the adventure comic I wanted.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much flipping, but you could do it at the show.
Mm-hmm.
There was no certification. So I'd see somebody, he has the hit 5 underpriced. I would walk it all the way across the room to somebody like, I don't know, Harley or whoever, and I'd sell it for a few thousand more.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So Steve, real quick, before we go on, I've had a lot of listeners that have commented back saying things like, can you sometimes explain some of the things that you're talking about? And so just so people are clear, so when Steve's saying church copy, Nova Scotia copy, what he's talking about is a pedigree. And what a pedigree is essentially, kind of to keep it simple, is like these historic landmark collections that have been found, typically mostly Golden Age, but there are Silver Age ones.
Oh, sure. So the first Silver Age was the White Mountains, which was in the first Sotheby's in 1990.
Yeah. So when you hear Steve say church copies, there's a guy named Edward Church whose collection was found by Chuck Rosansky of Mile High. So there's Ed Church Mile High collection. It's like the most famous pedigree. But yeah, that's what he's referring to. So just so people are aware, I just wanted to throw that.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
I knew what you're saying, but yeah. Some
yeah, I mean, if I'm not explaining things correctly to your audience, please let me do that.
So Steve, my next question is, so then on Comic Link, explain what are the various like platforms or because like obviously if you're going to sell at Tech 27, it's going to be at the premier.
Yeah, it'll be at the premier auction.
We lost him here. Rohan lost him.
Yeah, he's frozen. But basically, the art and the comics, we have, I think there's something almost every week. But there's, the featured auction, there's the focused auction. And then we also have, which a lot of people don't seem to know about, is we have Certified Link. And that's for certified cards, video games, VHS, all that stuff. And we're doing real well at that. Yeah, I mean, they basically, we also have something called the exchange, which I've been talking to dealers about lately. They didn't really know about it. And what's really cool is that you put it on the exchange, but you just put up the photo and the price you want. And if you're taking offers, you can put that up too. But you hold on to the book. So the dealer, if it hasn't sold on our site, can sell it by himself. And he's just getting double exposure. But it's worked out really well for some people. We have people who only want to do the exchange. Yeah, auctions better, especially if you do no reserve. If you do reserve auctions, they a little tricky. You know, people look at you and say, look at the piece, I mean, and say, well, the guy has it at 30,000 reserves, so maybe that's all it's worth. Why should I spend more? And you start something at $1, all these people start bidding up, right? It's fantastic. And then the auction goes live that night for that session, and things explode, especially the last 15 seconds.
Yeah,
I've seen things go up 5 times.
Steve, do you ever feel pressure that like you're gonna sell some big book, and like, is there any pressure like, oh, I hope everyone sees this, or is there any pressure that like no one's gonna know, and like therefore the bidding won't be as like competitive, or you won't get the numbers you want? Like, is there any pressure?
Oh no, we do quite a bit of PR, and I've been really heavy on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and podcasts, of course. So we pump the stuff, and I mean, I'm not going to post an Avengers, 103 in VG, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to make enough money off of that for me to take my time and promote it. But I've promoted $500 books because I think it's cool. Oh wow, there's one coming up.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, so why don't we talk about a few of the kind of like premier type items that you got here? So we've got here, it's a Adventure Comics. What is that? A 95. Yeah.
Yep.
Which pedigree is this?
What pedigree is that? I can't tell. No, I can't see it on there.
I think it's the Promise Collection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I see the P there. I think you're right. Now, what is the Promise Collection? This is a great story. How this one came about.
Well, it's a weird story. It was the first pedigree found in a long time. It had some unbelievable books, and it was deep. But it was during COVID, right? And everybody, was buying like crazy. They were getting money from the government or business loans from the government. They were stuck at home. They weren't going out for dinner. They weren't going out clothes shopping unless they needed something. They were stuck in front of their computers, and people went crazy. But the prices were nuts on a lot of the pieces, and some people have tried to sell them now, and not a 9.4, that's gonna kind of hold its own, but it's like an 8.0 or something, and they paid triple guide, or not guide, triple GPA. Right. And then they're stuck with it, and if they need to sell it, they can't get out. Right now, we're going through a correction because of COVID and all the money that was spent and people stuck at home. Prices went up too high too fast. So non-key bronze in mid grade is, and even in high grade, some of them, there's too many on the census. I can go to a convention and I can throw a rock and hit a Hulk 181, right? But if I want to find a centaur I might not even see more than like 4 or 5 at a convention, a big convention, right? You know, in high grade, you know. Um, so there's a correction going on, and you know, it's crazy, but there's no correction in the original art. It's been going up. It's exploded. Yeah, like that burn piece is gorgeous. That's coming to auction soon. Everything you're showing is going to auction soon.
Now, why do you use the original art not having the correction like the comic books are? Why is that a different animal?
Oh, because nobody can buy 20 copies of the same page.
Yep.
Everything's
Right.
one of one.
Right. And people have realized how rare it is and how beautiful it is. I mean, back in the day when I was doing the Phil Suling shows, like I said, I could buy Kirby pages for like $10. I mean, they weren't the best, but you know, they were great. And, you know, and you got to actually talk to Jack Kirby back then, which was cool, and Roz. And but the original art market is much smaller than the comic book market. Oh, I love that Frank Miller piece, man. That is so cool.
That's pretty awesome.
But the prices just kind of keep going up because nobody went crazy with the art during COVID.
There's two pieces that went pretty crazy. The original Frank Miller from Dark Knight and the Secret Wars.
We just got that in that Thanos cover. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's original art.
Yeah, we got both covers, 1 and 2.
JP, did you just get this comic?
I did.
Really? Cool. It's a wonderful comic.
JP will trade you his comic for this piece of original art.
It's funny. I got the comic from an online auction too. So
so real quick on original art, Steve, is it safe to say like a lot of original art is just long gone, thrown out? Like think about like like golden age original art. It doesn't exist anymore because it just got destroyed over the years.
No, I mean there's golden age that exists, but
a lot of it, I'm saying a lot of it.
Yeah, DC in the 40s told the younger people that were working there to cut them up and throw them out. So some of these guys were smart, and what they did was they cut along the top panel, then along the middle panel. So you have panels, right? So I have Joe and Nadia Manarino were really sweet, good friends, amazing people. They gave me one of those strips of Wonder Woman because they knew I was a Wonder Woman collector. Oh, nice. I couldn't believe I had a H.G. Peters, you know, Wonder Woman. You know, it's unheard of. But stuff, you know, comes to market that nobody knew existed. People bought them, you know, 40 years ago when they weren't worth anything. They just liked it, stopped collecting. They now are going to retire. They want a retirement fund. And all of a sudden we're like, wow, you had this Tales of the Crypt cover? You know, nobody knew where it was.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, so like for example, so I want to talk about this book too as well, but like,
oh, that's great. Yeah. Best cover.
Imagine like, do we even think the original art for this cover, which is for those that can't see, it's Tech 31, the iconic Batman overlooking the mountain cover. Do we think that this original art cover exists?
I have no clue. I don't think so. Yeah.
That would be something, man.
Yeah. I mean, in the late 50s and 60s, early 60s to mid 60s, I guess, DC would actually send you, if you wrote a letter in and they published it, they would actually send you a piece of art. Like Bernie Sanders showed me this great Murphy Anderson, Infantino Murphy Anderson, Adam Strange splash that DC just sent him, you know, for writing in.
That's awesome. That'd be cool if they did stuff like that still. That'd be
Yeah,
sweet.
right.
Yeah.
But the artists need to make money. I mean, that's why I work with the Hero Initiative, because the older artists didn't get big money for their art, and they were getting paid to, get work out quick.
Right.
I mean, it's funny. I was helping Don Perlin, great artist, nice guy, sell his collection of art he kept. And he was telling me stories, which was fantastic. I was in fanboy heaven, right? And he said that, he always used an eraser, wanted to make sure the lines were correct. Uh, but then he noticed after a while that John Buscema, who we could see from where he was, never used an eraser. And so he asked John, he says, "Why don't you ever use an eraser?" He goes, "Because they pay me to draw, not erase." So with the Hero Initiative, we're helping these people who didn't make money, who's making, who the dealers are making money, movies are making money, but they were doing work for hire, and that was it. So we have to take care of the people that came before us and gave us all the stuff we love.
So what is if you want to give me more details on the Here initiative? So what exactly are what is an example of you raise money to cover?
Right. So we raised money to cover housing, medical expenses, food, transportation. Some of these guys are, very old, and they need a lot of medical, and they can't afford it because they did work for hire, and they didn't save their art and sell it, right? I mean, you think about like Walt Simonson will never need help. He keeps all of his art, the Thor art and stuff,
Right.
and it's got to be worth, millions, right? um, and so we won't need to help him, hopefully, knock wood. I mean, I hope
Right.
everything goes great for Walt. He's such a wonderful person to talk to. He's on the board of Hero Initiative with us, actually. And we've had some great people on the board, and we have great people on the board now. But Jim McLaughlin was talking to Mark Alessi. Jim McLaughlin is the president of Hero Initiative now, but did a lot, and probably the best rendition of Wizards letters pages. He was great. He's a real fan. He was with Mark Alessi, who at the time owned CrossGen. And they were at a baseball game, and they brought up the fact that there's a fund for players that are, got hurt early, or I don't know enough about sports, but
Yeah.
the
Good
ones
with
that
football
need
now.
money get money. He said, "Why don't we have this for our comic creators? The writers and the artists?"
Yeah, it's a great
And
idea.
yeah, they went for it, and it's turned into a very, very incredibly beautiful thing. I mean, even if you want to go to their website and just give them $1, right? It helps, because think about it. If everybody that in our hobby gave $1, there'd be, millions of dollars in this fund.
Oh heck, yeah. We have a church near us that put up a big, a huge basketball court for the community, and all they ask for is every one time you come in, just put $1 in the one bin to
Right.
help pay the expenses of having this $1 million building constructed. So we always say when we practice here, everyone brings their $1. Every kid,
Yeah.
so $10 a day from our group and 10 from the next group. So that's a good idea.
Right. And what's really cool is that, unlike most charities, we only have 2 employees that get paid. And our office is the coffee shop around the corner. So we don't spend money on that. So it goes to where it's supposed to go. Like,
So
remember
90,
the Wounded
90-some% goes
Warrior thing? It was like 8% was going to vets, and 92 to the people who ran it.
Yeah.
You know? So I check out every charity I do. I'm big on St. Jude's. I've helped them do uh, art auctions in New York and Chicago with Mike Nagan, who's another great person for the hobby. Um, and he works for Reed. Um, but yeah, I mean, we have to treat each other well on this planet. I mean, look, I'm an old hippie. I believe in peace and love and and not hurting anybody and helping people and not lying. And it's strange, you know.
Well, you know, I was gonna say it's interesting, like when you hear about the story of this hero initiative, and you think about like all the great artists from centuries ago, right? Like Vincent van Gogh, his
Yeah,
paintings now go for tens of hundreds of millions of dollars.
right.
During his life, though, he had nothing, and he
Yeah,
kind of was just like bumming around, and like a lot of these artists, like none of their paintings go for anything until they're gone. And
right.
this is essentially what's happened to these people that the Hero Initiative is like they had to kind of work for hire as they could, and people made money off of them, but like no one ever took care of them. So it's great to see that you guys are doing this. That's
There
awesome.
was there
Yeah,
was
I
no
mean,
pension. There
I
was no
feel very
health plan.
privileged that I can do this.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good. I always say that if I needed charity, God forbid, I would take it. So if I would take it, why wouldn't I give it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But I definitely check out the charities first. I do a lot of research.
Yeah, I think what is the average stat? Is something like 80% of dollars donated don't go to like the
The
consulting
CEOs
Yeah.
and advertising
Yeah.
and that's just wrong, man. You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, every time I watch YouTube to watch a comic discussion or a podcast or a YouTube podcast, there's always a St. Jude
Yeah.
advertisement. So my son, it was a Wish kid. He did a Wish
Oh,
trip.
really?
So we have donated more to Make a Wish because we had involvement with that. I know they may not give as much back as maybe others, but we had a pretty close connection with Wish, and we would do radio ads for them and whatnot after my son got as he got older. But so it means a lot whenever you can see who's affected by it, and then you want to give back for what you got, the benefits that you had. So once you want to give back and
Yep.
keep giving back. So
Make-A-Wish is pretty good though. It's funny. It's nothing to do with comic books. I was at a Grateful Dead concert in Maryland many years ago, and they encored with Ripple, which they hadn't done in ages, and people were freaking out. But then I found out that it was some young kid who was not going to live very long, and he wanted to hear that live in concert.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really, really sweet.
I tell you one thing, when I think about, everyone wants to be rich and famous, but when I see, going to Children's Hospital or going to Make a Wish, and these celebrities who can put a smile on a kid's face, I would trade that to be that person just to give the smile, not the money they have, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, whoever. It's the smile they give the kid is priceless, because who else could deliver that? I mean, the parents, but their friend, but John Cena's here, or the guy, Tobey Maguire, you name it, and it's crazy. So
It could be anybody that they idolize.
It's just
it's incredible.
Yeah, so anything you can give back to people go through tough times, and to be able to give back when you can, and then if you do receive, to be able to give back tenfold what you got. I think that's a good thing to strive for.
Even Steve Jeppy, Gemstone, The Price Guide, and Bob Overstreet, and Jeff Vaughn, they put out a limited edition price guide just for the Hero Initiative.
Oh, that's nice. Great.
So it's limited to like, I don't know, 500 copies or something like that. And that's the price guide I buy because I want to give to charity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also limited edition. So if it's worth money later on, that's cool. you know, but the whole hobby's pretty much into it.
No, I think
Great.
that's the one of the things getting back into the hobby. You talked about, being honest and why people who you want to work with and saying who the right people are. I remember being young and being, kind of pushed around at the shows, and now coming back, and the IG community, the YouTube community has been so welcoming and so
Mm.
helpful, right? Their own little charity to help myself get back into this hobby and enjoy it for the right things, and then having the right type of people to look up to be helpful.
Right,
Says
but
a
you have
lot
to you
about.
have to be very careful on Facebook and Instagram. There's these what are they calling them? Influencers,
Influencers. Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I've watched
Rohan's a
people.
influencer.
Well, you got to take a step back. It's not about your personality, and it's not about the money. And these people, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them are saying, this book is going to be worth this and blah, blah. And they get people to pay way over what the market is.
Mhm.
And it disgusts me. I mean, they could have bought that book on Comic Link for, much less money.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're promoting the books that they have as the top 10 list, and some
Yeah.
of them are entertaining, and I enjoy it for that part of it, and a lot of it is, my background is financial and stock market, so
Mm.
I get the speculation part of things and the growth part of things, but some of it can be driven by specific people. The
Right. I mean,
market
there's
can't really.
guys or women that'll put up like a Roy Rogers 1 in 6.0, saying this is a great investment. It's a number one from the 50s, and Roy Rogers will live forever. It will be remembered forever. I can't sell that book,
Mm-mm.
you know,
No.
and then they get somebody to buy it. Um, it's a it's a bad investment. We don't want to put people into bad investments.
Right. I think the best advice is you collect what you like,
Yep.
and then that if you're stuck with
And
that
what you
book.
can afford.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't put it on a credit card.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Because you
Know what
never
you're getting into.
know if a market, let's say we have a real depression in this country. I write this in Overstreet every year. I say, if you've read my reports before, stop reading. This is for the new people. And I explain that, you can't house your family with comic books if there's a real depression, or if you lose your job and you have to sell it quick, you're going to lose money. Um, and it's just, if you can afford it, buy it. Or if somebody gives you long time payments without interest, that's great too. Um, but stay in your budget and buy what you love, because you'll enjoy the hobby so much better. And you also have to remember, it is really about, if you love the hobby, not just the comics, it's really about the friends you make. I would trade every piece of art I own to keep the friends I've made in this hobby.
That's awesome. Yeah, I said, it's a great community.
It
With
is.
the right ones in the community, right? There's always bad seeds, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
But
wherever there's money, there is. I mean,
there
Yeah.
is, but when you
remember,
meet the
what
right
was his
people.
name? Jerry Ross and Robert Crystal. I mean, they were in Canada raping people,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like sending you a book that they say is a near mint, and it's a VF, and it's color touched, or
Ah,
pages missing. And then because they were in Canada, they were like, screw you, sue me,
yeah, ship
and
it
you
back.
weren't,
It'll cost you more.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't take it back. Um, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's Greg White right now. He's at convention still. He doesn't have a certified book. He sells an AF-15 to somebody who doesn't know. They think they're getting a deal. And they send it to CGC or CBCS. They find out it's restored or it's missing a coupon. And they go back and he says, sue me.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone who's had any dealings with the attorneys and the law, it isn't that simple as I'm going to sue you because it cost you money to get involved, and you'll be out the money you thought you were going to get back. So that's
exactly.
That's the barrier to entry right there. So it's he knows the game from what you're saying, and yeah, and that's the thing. You sell a book on eBay, and the person says, I've seen this on a couple YouTube videos. Ryan from Mint Hunter is talking about ships it out. The guy doesn't like the book. The guy or girl doesn't like the book, and they want their money back. Well, eBay gives them the money back, right? And then they don't send back Ryan his book.
Right. I mean, eBay has become a flea market and not a place where I would suggest people look for books. If you're smart enough and you've been around the hobby long enough, you can pick the right sellers and follow them. But you should do your research when you meet a seller.
JP and I have talked about this. We did an episode on like kind of the things we wish we knew when we first started. It's like when you first come back in, like for us, we were out of it for 30 plus years. We come back, you kind of naturally like, okay, where am I going to find these older comic books that I want? And it just kind of, everyone naturally thinks of eBay. eBay's got all this stuff. So you find them on eBay and you're like, well, okay, this is where I got to buy them, and you buy from there. And it's like, until we got like involved on like the comic book community on Instagram, you can follow these sellers directly and create relationships with them and like be like, hey, I'm looking for a Fantastic Four 12. It's like, oh, I don't have it, but I know, so-and-so has it. He's a great guy. And then it's like you bypass all those fees and all these things. So it's like, you're totally right. Like, I agree. Like I have no interest now in buying comic books on eBay just because it's like, you can find everything you want to find. Yeah. Well, cards, there's no other market for it. That's a whole other topic. But like with the comics, it's like, I can just scroll my Instagram feed and find what I want and like be directly connected to who I'm buying it from.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Instagram, I don't know, your consignment people are you talking about on Instagram, Steve? Is that someplace that you would recommend? Like Elite Comics, like you're talking.
I wouldn't consign anything to somebody who's going to put it on Instagram. I mean, Comic Link gets more views,
right.
So does some other people. But we have the exchange where you don't have to put it into the auction, which is fantastic. And then we have the auction for the stuff that explodes, and we've been getting record prices.
Well, and that's the concern. I never did any auctions, right? And so as I got back into the hobby, I happened to fall upon a local auction, and they had some comic books there that I bought for a song, $16 for a run of Hulk books.
Nice.
Had a couple nice ones in there. And then I go back, and it is quite the rush to do the auction, right? In person or live. Let's say if it's live on video, because I know the people that come every week and I know what they're into roughly. So I know that when they do a table, right? There's a table full of items, and it might be a comic book, a baseball card, and, tools, like for mechanic tools.
Yeah.
And I know the guy bidding on a mechanic tool, he wants that pretty bad. So I'm going to hold back and let him bid that up and not overpay for this comic.
Right.
But when it's just one book for sale and you got all these people going after, like you said, record prices, because that drive that you want to get that book.
Well, a lot of things go at market, which is what people care about, as long as they're not losing money, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so I turn down a lot of material if I don't think they can do well with us. I send them, if they have a lot of bulk and we don't do bulk, I send them to Buddy Saunders, who's a great friend and one of the first in fandom. And he buys the bulk, and I helped a collector and I helped a friend.
Yeah, I think that, you kind of, when you get back in a hobby, you like you said, you watch the influencers and they may be steering the wrong direction of where you need to find these at. So I'm glad we had you on, at least to help myself, because I have more luck at the conventions because I like to trade with the guys that are there. Right. But then I like to go to antique stores and auctions to find that rush of finding that book that I know of and someone doesn't and whatnot. But then every once in a while I'll use eBay just to find, piece something out. I can't find anywhere else because where I'm located at doesn't give me many options. There's no comic book shop near me. So I'm kind
Yeah,
of
but I
stuck.
mean,
But
like, you know, like MCS is a great subscription service. I mean, unbelievable. You could use them and not worry about eBay,
yeah,
right?
I agree. I see some horror stories. My daughter wanted a pair of AirPods or something, and everyone listed was from Hong Kong, and I'm like, we're
Right,
not buying
right.
from there, right?
Yeah.
Let's find somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah,
So yeah, you never know what you're gonna get.
yeah.
Real quick, Steve, I want to ask, going back to Comic Link, if you guys sell like something that's a premier item on auction, they have to send it to you and you guys house it and then ship it to whoever buys it, correct?
Right. And it's completely insured with us, of
Yeah.
course.
But like on the exchange, like if JP and I wanted to sell a book on the exchange, we hold on to it until it sells. Is that how that works? Or do we have to send that to you?
Right. You have to be approved to get on the exchange.
Oh,
you know.
okay.
So, you know, send me an email or send
Yeah.
Comic Link an email. You
Do
know,
we have your
I
approval
mean,
now?
yeah, whatever. I'm always working. I mean, this isn't work. This is fun.
All right.
You know, the exchange is just a really cool place. Sometimes people overprice things. If they're way, way overpriced, we usually tell them, you know, look, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You guys get down to it that close to say, hey man, you're not gonna probably
Yeah,
not gonna sell
because
it.
you know, it'll sit there for a year, not sell, and then the guy will say, "Oh, the exchange didn't work for me." Well,
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's
your
your
piece
guys'
is worth
reputation.
5,000. You were
Yeah.
asking 10.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and then that guy says like, "Oh, I tried using Comic Link. I couldn't sell anything on there." And it's like, "No, bro, like it's your
Yeah,
fault that you didn't sell." Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense.
yeah. I mean, we're one of the top two in the world. There's a reason for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I didn't realize that because you know the guys I deal with at the local auction, you ask them questions, and you know you can do silent or absentee bids, but I don't know if he's really trying to get the deal for me. And every once in a while, I win something when I wasn't there for it. But if I knew for sure that he's nah, John, you know we can't you can't get this for that price. You're gonna have to go up higher. Or hey, if I'm going to sell stuff there, you know to get that information firsthand from you guys, the experts, I think that's
Well,
a great
that's what's
touch.
important. A lot of people will email me and say I have a collection, and I basically email back, do you have a list? Of course. And can you send some pictures so I can check out grades? I can't grade from a scan, but I get an idea, right? But then I ask them to give me a call, and we usually end up having somewhere between a 20-minute to an hour discussion uh, about, you know, is Comic Link the right place for them? If not, where is? You know, or like you said, you have to manage expectations. The guy thinks the book's worth 50,000. I think it's going to sell for 40. I don't want to take that in. I don't want them bad mouthing me. I mean, almost all the people who call me or email me, it's from word of mouth. People saying, "Oh my God, Steve, you know, never lied to me, did everything said he would do. He promoted, he went above and beyond when I was worried. He talked to me about this." And it, that's how you keep your, you know, reputation in the hobby.
Yeah, definitely. That's a professional, you know, site. That's not, you know, we're not just fly by selling things and trying to make a buck. We're trying to, you know, make it an experience. And in my profession, my 9 to 5 profession, if you're not a fit and I'm not a fit, I'm not trying to get every piece of business. I want to make
Right.
sure there's a fit. There's bad
Exactly.
mouth, word of mouth, all that. So
Yep.
that's a
I
good
mean,
point.
you know, it was crazy. I went on, you know, Instagram, Facebook, and did one or two podcasts when I joined Comic Link. So I kept reading the comments because I kept waiting for somebody to say, "Oh, I hate Steve Borock," or "I hate Comic Link," or blah, blah. We didn't get one.
Wow.
Nice.
I was like blown away because this is social media. People talk
Yeah, yeah.
crap.
There's always someone
Right?
negative.
Yeah, I
Right.
say like social media,
always
'cause
somebody.
the comment section is like the cesspool of human idiocy.
Yeah. And I was at the WonderCon this weekend, and I hadn't seen most of these people since before COVID. And they were so happy I'm at Comic Link. I didn't get anything but accolades. And same thing about the people who work there and Josh Nathanson, the president. It was amazing. It was nothing like being online,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, it was really good.
So, Steve, I have a fun question for you.
Okay.
And I love hearing these like, numbers and things like that. What's the most expensive book you've sold on that's been sold on Comic Link?
Ooh, I do not know.
Oh, do you know some like high dot? Like, what are some of the top ones?
Oh wow! I've only been there 7 weeks.
Quiz.
Actually, you could check the record sales.
Okay.
We keep that up. Go to where it says, I think, yeah, auctions, and then hit that, and it'll scroll down to auction results, and it'll take you to the last auction, or you can press 2021 to see what it sold for then. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely. I'm always interested to hear these kind of. I like reading these stories on these big books and what they go for, and I think it's super fun to watch.
Yeah, the most expensive book I ever bought was in the 90s. I spent $115,000 on a More Fun 52 church copy, the first Spectre. I was on the plane, and I was holding the book, looking at it, loving it, and I was like, I'm an idiot. I could have bought a house.
Yep.
But that sold for what I think $240 after I sold it. So guy made quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
You still have that book, or have you sold it since?
No, I said I sold it and made that money.
Oh, okay,
right.
okay.
So you collect original art, you collect some stuff now. What are some of your personal favorite pieces that you have?
Well, I sent you one.
Which one
of
is it
my
on here?
collection, the Starman 7 cover.
Oh yeah.
By Tony Harris. Oh, that's me and Josh. Oh, go back, man. That's cool. That's Josh and I when we were so much younger. Look how much hair we had.
Oh yeah.
And how much heavier I was. And I'm wearing a Betty and Me 16 shirt. Oh man, that's crazy. Sorry. Anyway, so the Tony Harris piece is my personal collection. I don't ever want to get out of it.
Wait, which one is it?
Right there, Starman.
No, the Starman 7 cover. It's maybe I could have sworn I sent it over, but maybe I didn't. And yeah, I'm just in love with the original art, but especially the multimedia stuff. Watercolor, all that. Like I said, I love Stuart Sager's work. Jusko's a good friend of mine. I love his stuff. And like even my friend, well, he's gone. It's a shame, but Neil Adams. A lot of it was black and white, and I loved it. But then he showed me the recreation he did. I think it was the one from the Batman Treasury with Ra's al Ghul. It just like popped, and I was like, "Oh, I want it, but I can't afford it."
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of original art that you could fill up a wall with your favorite artists, and just go broke, bankrupt trying to buy it, go broke trying to buy all of it, because it'd be phenomenal.
JP, did you see so Jason? Have you met Steve? So Errol's got a good friend, Jason. His feed is Omega Collects. He's a big original art guy, and so he had me follow this. It's Comics Art Connect or something like that on Instagram. They sell original art.
Comic Art Fans is a pretty cool place.
Okay,
I'm not sure. It's Bill Cox's.
Anyways, what I was gonna say today was it or was it yesterday? They posted the original art was the cover of what's that Marvel Age, the Todd McFarlane cover of Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
And so like I said to Jay, like, I was like, you buying this? He's like, I wish, man. That's gonna be like $80,000 to $100,000 for that thing. Like, how sweet would that be?
The Spider-Man cover from Marvel Age 90.
Yes, that one. Yeah, the Todd McFarlane one.
That's killer. We have some great Todd McFarlane stuff coming up too, so that's cool.
Or the other
We
side,
always seem to have some McFarlane. We got lucky, Well, we didn't get lucky. Josh has worked, most of his life towards this, building the reputation, building, the high prices that we realize for a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, I stopped buying artwork that I wasn't going to frame.
Now, frame meaning like you take it and you get it professionally framed,
right?
You're like that's
safe and all that.
Yeah,
right.
all that's So there's another cost involved to the purchase itself, plus the protection part of it too, right?
Right. But I had a bunch
No
of stuff that I just bought because I thought it was cool, and I was like, I'm not looking at this portfolio, so let me sell it and buy something I like. And I just bought the Zatanna 2 cover by Stefan Rowe.
Oh, nice.
It's beautiful. Gorgeous. And I love Zatanna. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah. So, Steve, let me ask you, as we're probably coming to the end here. We're almost at an hour and a half.
Oh, wow. Obviously, I'm sorry if I took up so much time.
No. This is kind of average for us. It always ends up at this point. So
we're
nerds. We could talk all day, all night about this stuff.
Cool. But, you obviously love the hobby. You want to see the hobby grow. You've already talked about your grandkids. Are your grandkids into comics?
Yes, and it was really cute. Atticus, the 4-year-old, was Spider-Man. He's about to be 5, but was Spider-Man for 2 years, and I was like, "That's so cool!" I love Spidey, Atticus. The whole bit.
Did you get him into it, or did you get him into it, or did they naturally just get involved, or had?
I think a little bit for me, but I was in Dallas most of the time they were growing up. That's why I came home, right? But he calls me up and before Halloween this year, and he says, "Poppy, I don't think I want to be Spider-Man this year." And I'm like, kind of bumming, but I'm like, who cares, man? He's a kid. Let him be who he wants, right? I said, "So what do you want to go as?" He goes, "Can I go as Iron Man?" I was like, yes. No problem.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
I've been playing Hero Clicks with them, not the game, just playing with the little stuff, because my daughter was into the Hero Clicks when she was very young, and I put them away in a box, and I had this giant box, and my granddaughter wants the girls and my grandson wants the boys, so there's no fighting, and then we play, and it's so much fun, and I explain their powers and stuff. It's just a blast. I want to keep the next generation going.
Yeah. And what's interesting, we got out of it, like we mentioned earlier, but my kids were born right when Iron Man was coming out. And so I have all the toys that they had, like we bought them because I was into it, but not into the comics. But I knew that had to be part of their growing up is the superheroes and the costumes and the stuffed animals, and it wasn't comics, but the toys.
Right.
And so it never really left me, and they got not indoctrinated, but it's hard not to become a fan of that stuff, because
absolutely
it's imagination. It's so much involved with that. So,
and when you get the bug, I mean, you get it. You can't stop.
I mean, look at JP and I. Like we said, we got back into this a year ago, or not even a year ago, and we're doing a podcast now. Like the bug has gotten
cool,
us.
Man. It's cool,
Yeah, and I've said on this.
And you guys call me anytime you're going to buy a book or look at a piece of original art or something. I'll always help you out.
Awesome.
I don't care where you're buying it from. I just want the hobby to be healthy.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, because you can go down a bad path and deal with some bad people, like we talked about earlier. So I think more people need to be turned on to what you're talking about, to look to you for guidance and to be able to keep this hobby going, because you have too many shysters. People will get out of it. They'll be done. It won't be a hobby anymore. It won't be worth, this paper won't be worth anything. So we need good people. So
I mean, we're lucky that it's modern day mythology, and it's been around since 1938, basically, right?
Yeah.
superheroes, and it, it's addicting, but it's also fascinating. You think about mythology. What people would call mythology. You think about Zeus and all that, but we've even incorporated that into comics.
Oh
With
yeah,
Thor and Loki and
yeah.
everybody. It's
It's some great
cool.
storytelling that has over thousands of years grown, and it's really hard to tell an original story, but you can make an original story even better by adding new parts to it. So
Yeah,
that's what I think is cool about, I was a big Terminator fan, Terminator and Total
yeah.
Recall, and The Matrix came out, and it was a different take on that original movie, Terminator and Total Recall, and it was one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it was not that original, but they made it better, right? So
Yeah.
it was that's what you can do, take a
Mhm.
little imagination, creativity, and
Actually, real quick too, Steve, let's just put you to this. So today I am talking with a guy on doing like a trade deal for a Fantastic Four 12, which is the
Oh,
first
nice. Great book.
Hulk
Yeah.
thing crossover. And he has both a UK price variant and the regular American. Do you think I should?
Well, what are the grades?
Well, they are a bit lower grades. They're both around 2.0s.
they're graded though.
One is the UK price variant. I think is graded. The US one is raw.
The raw one I'd be careful of,
Yeah.
because AF-15s are notorious for color touch.
Yeah.
Um, if he sends it on approval,
Well,
and
it's not if it's FF12.
oh, sorry, I don't know why I went there. Brain fart. What can you do? Anyway,
But
yeah,
I mean,
but yeah, I mean, you know, I just, without seeing the book in hand, I won't buy or make an offer or tell people to consign it without really seeing them in hand.
Okay, let's just say if you had two comparable books, we'll just say whatever books, and you had UK price variant. And do you have any preference? Like, do you like UK price variants or anything? I'm
Oh,
just
I
curious.
love them.
Yeah,
They're rarer than their
the American.
counterparts,
and that one's
but
graded too. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of people who want the American. They're like, that's the original. Meanwhile, they were printed at the same time and just has a different little price thing, you know.
yeah. And
and I
I
think
actually don't own any UK price variants, so it'd be kind of fun to this be my first one potentially.
Yeah, as
I
long as
think
you're
that's
not paying too much. But like I said, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, yeah.
and
I'll help
I
you
have
out
a
with that.
book I want to ask you about because I
Sure.
don't know much about it, but I'm just gonna since you mentioned Grateful Dead, I'm gonna put this book up here. I don't know if
Oh
you've
my
ever seen this
God.
book at all.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I got an auction I won that came in the mail, and that was one of the books, and I looked online to see about it, and it's a reprint from the '60s, I think,
Yeah.
but this was in the '90s that they made this book.
Right.
So I don't know if
Just
I'm
from
not
an
saying it's
underground.
valuable, but
Yeah.
it's definitely a different type of comic book than I'm used to seeing. So it was it's a cool looking book, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. That's great. That
So
is cool. But
yeah.
let me see. You guys have any other questions, or can I?
No,
No, I think
we
that's
are, we
Okay.
have been
So,
schooled, and I really appreciate it. So
yeah.
oh,
No,
no
we've
problem.
like I said, Steve. I mean, like the hobby grows with good people because of people like you that
Not just me. I mean, you got to remember
well,
these
yeah,
people
but
started
people like
before
you are
me.
putting that
Bob
out there. That like, yeah,
Overstreet, Gary Weist, everybody. Chuck Woolley. I mean, these guys were the hobby, man. They really created stuff. I mean, the fanzines and everything were, mimeographed, and 13 people were on that list, right? And the EC guys used to trade back and forth with just an envelope, and they'd fold the book in half, put it through the mail because they just wanted to read it. They would
right.
just trade the ones that they've read. There's so many more important people that came way before me, and will be after me as well, more important. But I always tell people I'm just a hobbyist that got lucky and making a living.
yeah, that's awesome.
But so if you don't mind, before we end, I'd like to mention that people should definitely go to Comic Link.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
They could email me at sborock, BOROCK, at comiclink.com. steveborock.com, even if they just have questions, even if they don't want to sell. And they can follow me on Instagram under Steve Borock, follow me on Facebook under Steve Borock. I'm always posting cool books and neat stuff. And I personal stuff, mostly like family or something I picked up at a convention. Like I just
and I'll say, like, to everyone that's listening, right? I mean, that's exactly how Steve and I got in touch. I just messaged him, and he was gracious enough to respond back, and here we are. And so don't be shy.
No.
Yeah, nobody should be shy. If they see me at a convention, they have a question. A guy just pulled me over to look at 2 Golden Age books this weekend, and he knew me only from Instagram, but he saw my face, and he said, "These aren't certified. Can you check them for restoration for me?" And they were big books. And I was like, yeah, why not? And next thing I know, I got a text thanking me, not just from him, but the guy who was selling it.
Nice.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And, I didn't care. I wasn't making any money, but, we all need to connect. We used to put these giant dinners together at Gibson's in Chicago. And Neil Adams would go, Just Goes Gone, all these people. Maggie Thompson, Gary Colabono, who started the Chicago show with his friends, Moondog. And then just hobbyists. And like this great guy, Wynn, would bring his restored Action 1, and it wasn't certified. And he let everybody look through it, which was amazing because there were people there that were novices that heard about the dinner and wanted to come on board. And they just go crazy. They were like, I'm seeing an Action 1, it's beautiful. And then you talk to them about the hobby and explain the pitfalls or the good stuff. And it works for everybody. Rising tides lifts all boats.
100%.
Yep. That's very true.
Very
true.
Thanks for coming on, Steve.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
This is great. And I want to thank everybody who's watching. And I hope you all just have a fantastic year in this hobby. And if you see me at shows, just go up and say hello, man.
Will do.
Yeah. I'm hoping I see it at a show. And for those that are, lucky enough to see it one, say hi to Steve. And Steve, again, thanks for coming out and helping us out and schooling us on the history of comics and tell me where to go next using Comic Link. I'll be on the site sooner than later. So
just
appreciate
call
it very
me.
much.
I'll walk you through it.
Okay, we'll do.
Everybody should bid on Comic Link. I mean, I wouldn't have gone there if it wasn't fantastic and honest.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Steve. Everyone have a great rest of your night, great rest of your day.
Right.
Thanks for watching. Hit us up on the social
good, y'all.
media. Find Steve anywhere on IG. And thanks again, everybody. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Take care. Thank you.